So we're going to talk a little bit about the blood now. Blood consists of several major components. So two big ones are plasma and formed elements of the blood. So let's talk about formed elements of the blood first. Formed elements of the blood are essentially cells in the blood. So formed elements include red blood cells, which function is to transport oxygen. White blood cells, which function is to provide immunity. And platelets, which function is to form a clot. They also are critically important in the process of inflammation. Now, the components of the plasma are all acellular. Plasma consists of several major elements. First and foremost, of course, water. Then we have albumin. That's the protein that maintains osmotic pressure. Beta globins are responsible for transport, mostly of the lipid soluble molecules. Gamma globins, essentially antibodies. They are critical components of the immune system. Then we have, of course, fibrin, which forms threads that secure, make clot denser. And we have coagulation factors. Well, the name speaks for itself. They're responsible for, well, coagulation, respiratory gases, name speaks for itself, urea, which is the product of protein metabolism, and we're going to put someplace else, which is chemicals such as glucose, amino acids, hormones, that kind of stuff. Right, so red blood cells. Red blood cells contain protein called hemoglobin, which consists of 4 big subunits, 2 alpha subunits and 2 beta subunits. Each subunit of hemoglobin contains an organic molecule called heme, and inside of that molecule of heme, let's say that's heme, there is iron. Okay, so that iron can bind a molecule of oxygen. So essentially, one molecule of hemoglobin can can bind 4 molecules of oxygen. of oxygen. So when hemoglobin binds oxygen, it becomes oxyhemoglobin. And when oxygen dissociates from it, it is called deoxyhemoglobin. Now, red blood cells are produced and recycled on the regular basis, and the process in which they are produced is called erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis occurs under the control of the hormone called erythropoietin in kidneys. So when a number of red blood cells goes down, that leads to the release of erythropoietin from the kidneys, and that stimulates production of red blood cells from the bone marrow. What's important to understand, red blood cells do not have nucleus. They do not have mitochondria, so they do not use oxygen in the cellular respiration. So what can be stimuli for erythropoiesis? Well, obviously the main stimuli for erythropoiesis will be low amount of red blood cells, let's say blood loss, iron deficiency, decreased oxygenation, sorry, it shouldn't be decreased, it should be just hypoxia, yeah, those are perhaps the only ones, three main stimuli for erythropoiesis. What's important to understand is that erythropoiesis involves several quickly replicating cells, so there are a couple of vitamins that are crucial. It's the vitamin B12 and folic acid, which are necessary for the proper erythropoiesis. Those are vitamins essential for quickly dividing cells. So what happens to red blood cells when they're done? Red blood cells are recycled in kidneys. Sorry, not kidneys, my bad. They're recycled, that was complete. They're recycled in spleen, of course. Let's talk about white blood cells now. So white blood cells can be divided into two major groups: granulocytes and agranulocytes. The difference between the two is that granulocytes have cytoplasmic granules and agranulocytes don't. So let's talk a little bit about major types of granulocytes. Granulocytes are neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, and mast cells. So these three types of cells here reside in the circulation. They are in the blood. Mast cells are in tissues. The functions. So neutrophils, main players in antibacterial fight. They can do it through phagocytosis. That's probably the main mechanism. They can produce reactive oxygen species, chemical toxicity, induce chemical toxicity, so-called neutrophil extracellular traps. Eosinophils are cytotoxic. They are anti-helmintic, and anti-alpha here means anti-protozoan. Cytotoxicity. Basophils, they release histamine, which are essential inflammatory mediator, so inflammation. And finally, mast cells, responsible for the allergic responses in the tissue when you have a runny nose as the result of a seasonal allergy. That will be mast cells. Now it's turn for agranulocytes. So agranulocytes can be divided into monocytes and lymphocytes. So lymphocytes, cells that do not reside in the circulation, they normally sit in the lymphatic system. They sit in the lymph nodes. Okay, so those are lymphoid cells, so-called cells of the lymphoid origin. Monocytes and all granulocytes are cells of the so-called myeloid origin. So they are myeloid cells, meaning that they are in the blood. So monocytes, they respond to inflammation and they differentiate into macrophages, which are the main phagocytic cells of our immune system. Macrophages migrate into the tissue from the blood and destroy pathogens or debris or whatever. Lymphocytes, NK cells, we're going to talk about them later. Those are cells of the innate immune system. They can cause apoptosis of the cancerous, cancerous or virus-infected cells. And then you have T cells and B cells. So T cells have a variety of functions in the adaptive immunity. Separate topic, B cells produce antibodies. We're going to talk about these cells in the adaptive immunity topic. So that basically concludes our quick run through the main cells of the blood and main components